Hello students, this is an overview of how to do Lab 1 in week 1. It mainly concerns how we can create header files and take a program which is all bunched up together in a single file and then split it over 3 files. So the example problem is given to you in a lot of detail in the software engineering document that's there in the folder, that's there in the module. It's also there as it's part of your overview package. Now, here is a simple problem which deals with, if you scroll down, it's to calculate property tax. So what this program does is it prompts for a home value, reads in the home value from the console, checks if the value is in the given range, calculates the property tax, displays the results, and then if there's an issue with the input value, then it displays the result. It's a looping menu program in which the user can enter multiple home values until they choose to exit. So here are all the details of this program and how to build it up, starting from algorithm all the way through pseudocode, flowchart, execution chart, and all of that. So here, if you wish, you can go into a lot of detail. This is an overview of your CISP 360, which is a good thing to do. However, my intent in this video is to show you the source code development for this particular program so that you can duplicate this process for the lab, which is taking your check multiple 7 program that you wrote for orientation and splitting it across 3 files. So the source code development will consist of primarily putting the main method or the main function call, just like the app button, into the main program. And usually that file is going to be called something main.cpp. All the functions, the function names and the function headers are going to be put into a header file, which is usually called something header.h. And the function definition, which is all the implementations of the function, are going to go into a file called something functions.cpp. And this is what the procedure that you will stay with when you're coding in this class, because we're going to need to use this software engineering approach in object-oriented programming. So I will switch over to my IDE and show you where I have written the code for calculate property tax main and put it into one file. And we will go over how to split this over 3 files, and you can stay with this exact same method. There's one caveat, though. I'd like to point out that Replit does not like a file name to be called something main.cpp. It will usually want it to be just main.cpp. So if you are using Replit and then you would like to submit your file, please make sure that you rename the file. And also there is no confusion when I say something main.cpp, but when you look at my Replit, it actually says main.cpp. So let's go over to Replit here. And as you can see, I have got the property calculator. Here's the documentation. And if I run this program, it's just got one method called calculate property tax, which is in the main function. Calculate property tax is a function that's been defined in terms of a whole ton of other functions. So calculate property tax calls display opening banner, and it loops as long as the user wants to use its services. It displays a prompt. It gets the home value, it checks the home value to see if it's in range, calculates the property tax, displays the property tax, and if the value is not in range, it displays an error message and it loops back to see if there's more data from the user. So I'm going to run this program so you can see what this program looks like. Enter the home value 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Calculates the property tax. Do you have another home value? I say yes. And note that it has case sensitively designed. So if I've given a lowercase yes, it still takes it. enter the value, and I say 45, and it said this is an invalid because it's not in range, and then I'm going to exit by saying no. Now this program works perfectly fine, and it's all contained in one file, and this file is called main.cpp right here. So, so what is the problem with this? The problem with this is that, as you can see, there is a lot of code in the main program. Ideally, if you were a business, you would not be providing all of this code to your customer. All you would be doing is providing just this main app button, calculate property tax. The customer presses this button and the app starts and the program runs. So none of this other stuff needs to be visible to the customer. So we are going to pack it away and put it in separate files. The way we're going to do it is in 2 steps. First is, as you can see, all of these functions that the main method calculate property tax uses, they are all, first of all, defined as headers at the top of the program. Why do we need to do this? We need to do this because we need to indicate to C++ that these are names that are going to come in our program, but I haven't implemented these functions yet, but I promise that I will do so. And this is called prototyping. These are function prototypes. As you can see, these are just method headers with the parameters and all of that, but there's no body of the function. So that's going to come later. And here is the main program. And as you can see, all of these functions that I've got the headers here have all been defined at the bottom, one after the other. All of them are here. And this is a lot of clutter. So let's remove the clutter by first defining a header file, creating a header file. And I'm going to call this calculate property tax.h. And what's going to go in my calculate property tax h is I'm going to put all of this headers into, remove this from here, and I'm going to put it right here. Right? So now that I've got it in my header file, I'm going to delete all of this. However, the question is, now I've got a lot of these red flags here saying, I don't know where calculate property tax from. It was here right at the top and I was good, but I don't know where it's gone. So therefore, what we need to do is we need to say include calculate property tax header.h so that, let's see if I've actually, what have I called this here? Calculate property tax.h. I'm going to rename this to calculate property tax header.h. And when I do that, you see the red line disappears and it includes all of the function headers from here into this. Now I can run this program now and it would work perfectly well. But what I've also got is I've got all of these functions that are cluttering up my main program. So I'm going to tuck these away into calculate property tax functions.cpp, not h, and all of my functions are going to be moved to this file. So I've got my main program now only consists of a single button, which is calculate property tax, and this is what is going to be given to the customer. However, when I come to my CPP file, I still have a lot of red lines saying, I don't know where these functions are because I'm using stuff that is somewhere at the bottom, but C++ doesn't know it's at the bottom. So what I'm going to do here is one more time, I'm going to include calculate property tax.h, header.h, and as you can see, all of those red lines go away. Note that the only file that we need to include is calculate property tax header.h in the functions file and in the main file. What we do not do is do not include calculate property tax, the functions.cpp file. .cpp file. We do not include this file because we do not need to. What's going to happen is that automatically when we include the header file, then C++ will be able to find all of the functions. So now we have, from our single file, we've got 3 files, right? And if we run this now, we will find that it all works just exactly the same way as it did. So I'm going to enter 405679, and here's the calculated property value. Do I have another home value? I'm going to say no. So this program works exactly the same way, whether everything is scrunched up in the main.cpp or we split it. However, if we split these files, then then our main program is very clean, contains one single method call, and this is the correct software engineering practice that we'd like to maintain as we move into advanced programming, software engineering programming, and in using object-oriented techniques, right? And one more time, I'd like to point out that because I'm using Replit, I have to call my program, my file main.cpp. And if you're using any other IDE, you would be able to call it calculate property tax main.cpp. If you're using Replit and you would like to download this as a zip file, you can download this bunch of files as a zip file, and then you can rename it as calculate property tax main.cpp before you submit. So what you would need to do in your Lab 1 assignment is use this process that's been outlined here of creating multiple files and header files and implementation files. Use these techniques to work on your orientation assignment, check multiple 7, and split that into 3 files.